Okay, so let's talk about number 7. The problem says a man plans to invest $8,500, part at 3.5% and the remainder at 5%. And those are your interest amounts. If he interchanged the amounts he invested at each rate, he would increase his total annual income by $22.50. How much is invested at each rate? So, we need to sort of organize our thinking. We have $8,500 that we can invest in total. We know part of it is going to be invested at 3.5% interest, and the rest of it will be at 5% interest. We just don't know what those amounts are. Now, there's a couple ways you can do this, and you may have found a quicker way, and that's fine. But let's go ahead for now and say we're going to invest X amount of dollars at 3.5% and Y amount of dollars at 5%. Now, what we know from that information is what our total amount is, right? We know that X plus Y has to be the $8,500 that we have to invest. What we also know is that we're earning 3.5% interest on X amount of dollars and 5% interest on Y amount of dollars. So we can set up an equation that talks about the interest earned in that original investment. So let's make sure we're understanding how we can calculate interest here. So when you talk about an interest rate, we don't just write 3.5 times X. We have to think of 3.5 as a percentage. So we divide by 100, and that's going to give you 0.035. We do the same thing with 5%. We're going to say 5 divided by 100, which is going to give you 0.05. So when we start to write our equation, we need to use the 0.035 and the 0.05. So our interest earned is going to be at X amount of dollars, we earn 0.035 interest. So we would have 0.035 times X plus 5% at, or Y amount of dollars at 5%. So 0.05 Y. Now, that's how much interest we're earning. That's just what I'm writing here. I'm not doing anything else. But I've got two variables, and that probably is going to be a problem down the line. So I'm going to come back up to this original equation that I wrote, this X plus Y equals 8,500, and I'm going to think about how I can rewrite that so I have an expression that I can use in the interest earned expression. So maybe I subtract X from both sides. If I subtract X from both sides, I'm going to end up with something that looks like this. Y equals $8,500 minus X. Well, what's great about that is that I can now substitute that expression into my expression for interest earned. So I can take this and replace my Y with that expression. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. So I would have 0.035 times X plus, and now instead of writing Y, I'm going to write 8,500 minus X. So that gives me how much interest I earn in the original investment. There's a second investment though. It says if you switch how much you invest at each rate, you're actually going to get more of an income. Now, when we talk about income, we're talking about how much interest you're earning. Okay, so that's what this calculation is telling us. It's telling us how much interest we're earning. So let's look at the interest earned when we switch. Okay, so we're just going to switch the values that we earn at each interest rate, which really just means this, guys. Instead of earning 3.5% on X, we're going to earn 3.5% on 8,500 minus X. Instead of earning 5% on 8,500 minus X, we're going to earn 3.5% on 8,500 minus X. So essentially, what we see happen here is that these two things, either those two things get switched, or you can switch the interest amounts, whatever you like better. So what we end up with is an expression that looks like this. 0.035 times, and I'm going to put 8,500 minus X now instead of X, plus And then I have my other interest rate of 0.05, but instead of writing 8,500 minus X, I'm just going to write X. I guess I'm going to do that in blue. Okay, so that's what it looks like when we switch it. Now what we're told is that if he does the switch, he earns $22.50 more. Okay, so what we know is that this switch is going to give you a better return. So here's what I'm going to write here for a second. The switch is, when we hear is in mathematics, we think they're the same, it's equal. The switch is the original plus $22.50. So now I can set up an equation, right? I can take the switch and I can write that. So 0.035 times 8,500 minus X plus 0.05 times X equals my original investment, which is 0.035X plus 0.05, 8,500 minus X, with an additional $22.50 added on. Now you've got an equation. You can solve that for X. Once you know how much is invested as an X amount of dollars, you can figure out how much is invested with Y amount of dollars.